Balash, Andrew. We are here at the first meeting of 3GPP SA6, a newly created working group specific for mission critical applications. Balash, could you explain why 3GPP took the unusual decision to create such a working group?
3GPP started working on critical communication matters about 2 years ago. The initial motivation and push came from the United States, where certain government decisions were made on technology and budget, so they selected LTE for their next generation critical communication systems as a radio technology, and also sufficient amount of budget was allocated. So that's where the initial push came into 3GPP about 2 years ago, and that led us to work on radio and core network aspects in Release 12. Once the basic building blocks were in place for the core network layer and the radio layer, we started looking into the application level aspects. Now, 3GPP doesn't traditionally work on application layer aspects. There are other organizations doing that, like the Open Mobile Alliance and also ETSI. So we were very much aware of relevant ongoing work in those organizations. So we actually came together with those two organizations and tried to see what's the best way of harmonizing the efforts. And as a result of those discussions, we actually decided that we should channel all these activities into a single place. And the preference came out for that place to be 3GPP. So that was last August.
Okay, so the principal decision was made last August, but Andrew, I guess since last August, we're now in February 2015, I guess industry has not been idle. Could you explain briefly what's happened since the principal decision and the formal creation of the group today?
Yes, certainly industry has not been idle. We obviously had the principal decision made, but since then we've been doing things such as creating the group itself, doing the normal administrative side of things, the sort of getting the terms of reference agreed amongst the different stakeholders, and that's sort of been very encouraging, where the different groups like from different parts, from OMA, TCC, 3GPP, etc., have been willing to come together and all working towards getting this group set up and going. We've had the other administrative side of setting up, getting meetings put in place for this year, and it's been very encouraging to see how quickly people have come forward willing to host the meetings, and obviously see this as a key thing. The other thing that I think has been very noticeable is that the other stakeholders, especially outside of 3GPP, have been doing a lot of getting together to try and get a common position, so they can bring things into our meetings, so we can have a starting point from which we can work on. So we've been doing sort of laying the groundwork, getting the different stakeholders together, making sure we have the right processes in place, setting up the group so that it can move forward, looking to set up the elections and that sort of thing, getting people to come forward and put candidates forward. So it's been very encouraging from that point of view.
Now, you were appointed as the convener of this group, and in that capacity you've been responsible for the meeting that's taken place this week in Sorrento. What are your impressions of the first meeting? What progress do you think you've made?
My first impressions are that, again, people are coming together with a real keenness to get this sorted, this done, this mission critical communications, the application, to make it work. I must admit I had some reservations to start with, that maybe some people would be sort of trying to build walls and things, but I think it's been very clear this week at this meeting and in previous groups that offline discussions we've had, that all the stakeholders are very keen to work together. Clearly there are differences, and that's what you'd expect when people come from different backgrounds and different areas, but everybody's looking to work together. We've been very good, again, in this meeting. We've got the public safety people here, we've got the ETSI people, the OMA-based people, we've got 3GPP experts, all working together to start that process going. We have looked at moving over some of the work, as probably people are aware. SA2 was already doing some of this initial groundwork for us while SA6 was being formed. So we've been able to get a very clean move of some of that documentation from SA2, SA6. Again, we've done that this week. So now SA6 has a document to actually start progressing on. We've had a lot of inputs related to that document, a lot of ideas, areas that can be included and changed, and again we're moving forward with that. And we're looking obviously to progress the work as we go through the year, but I've been very encouraged by the initial response from people and the way people are coming together, looking to work together, looking to come up with a common solution.
So in summary, a very positive and constructive week's work.
Yes, so far very positive, very constructive, and I said very encouraging for the future, I believe.
Well, Balázs, we've already said that 3GPP cannot work in isolation in this particular space, and we need to build very strong links with other industry bodies. Do we have the right links in place, and were those other bodies present here for the meeting?
I believe we do have the right links established. As Andrew explained, we have the experts already channeled into this new group from OMA and ETSI. Apart from that, I think it's very important that the user community, the fire brigades, the police departments of the different countries and regions are also represented, and we have very good links towards the TCCA and the Tetra Critical Communications Association that gathers the user community. And apart from that, governments themselves are showing commitment from not only the US but also the UK, Korea, for example, the Netherlands. So we do have a very good representation of the key industry players.
Good. And finally, we've set some very challenging targets for the completion of this work. Do you both believe that we are able to meet those challenging targets? And if not, what are the risks that would prevent us from doing so? Maybe, Andrew, you would take that.
Yes, I think we've got very, very challenging targets, but I think from what's happened initially, I think it's encouraging people who are realising that, but are working towards it. So although we have challenging targets, I think they can be met. I think we'll be looking for specifications, stable specifications in the early part of next year, which I know is very key to some of our key stakeholders, and we're doing what we can to support them and working very closely with them. The challenges, of course, are with any project like this, when you've got different stakeholders coming in with different views, using new technologies maybe, or adapting existing technologies. There will be times when it's difficult to get easy agreement, and we'll be having to look for compromise in some cases, but I think that will allow for things to move forward. So the challenges are the technical side, I believe. Certainly the willingness is there to work. There is a lot to do, and I think that is clearly a challenge as well, because when you've got so much to do, you have to be careful that you don't fall over and running so fast. You've got to make sure you're doing things in the right order. But again, I think we within 3GPP, we have the processes in place to deal with that. So I think the challenges are the amount of work, but I think, as said before, I'm very encouraged with the willingness of people to work together, and I think we can have a stable set of specifications in the early part of next year.
Excellent. And Balázs, do you agree with that? Anything further to add with respect to the challenging timeline?
I would agree with Andrew. I think if we look at Tetra, for example, the Tetra specifications took many, many, many years to develop. Now what we're set out to do here is to replicate the same thing for new technology within 1 year. So that in itself is quite a bit of a challenge. In addition to that, different governments, different regions have different timelines, different legacy systems deployed. So there's always going to be differences in the opinions of the key stakeholders. But I think that for 3GPP, that's business as usual. So we have ways to achieve consensus. So I have high confidence, like Andrew, that this group has the right mix of people and competence to pull it through.
Okay. Andrew, Balázs, thank you very much for sharing your views, and I wish you both well in this new group.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.